Welcome back to Monitors Unboxed. It's time to update our gaming monitor buying guide for the middle of 2025. We've tested a bunch more products since the last update in 2024. Some monitors have changed in price as well, so there's plenty of fresh recommendations in here. The goal of this video is to provide recommendations across a range of different categories. This time around, we're focusing mainly on price classes. What should you buy at the high end, mid-range, entry level, plus a couple of specific niches. If you're more interested in recommendations centered around a type of monitor, for example, 1440p, 4K, or OLED, we have separate videos right here on the channel covering those things specifically. If you're not sure what type of monitor to buy though, this is the best guide for you. Today's video is brought to you by the Ugreen Nexode 165-watt retractable power bank. This is the ultimate hassle-free travel power kit. It has a 65cm retractable USB-C cable. You pull it out to the length you need. It's super durable, and with 100 watts of output, it can charge a 14-inch MacBook Pro over 50% in just 30 minutes. There's a second 100-watt USB-C port on top for charging devices simultaneously at up to 165 watts total. And it has a massive 20,000 mAh battery capacity with a smart TFT display, plenty for charging all your devices. When I go to Europe in a month, this is what I'll be using. Check out the Nexode 165-watt retractable power bank and Ugreen Prime Day deals via the links in the description to get up to 40% off. As with our previous best of videos, we tend to talk about and recommend monitors we've personally tested and know to be good, or monitors that are very similar to products we have tested. It's always worth going back and checking out the dedicated monitor reviews we produce for more in-depth thoughts on each product, but just so you know, these recommendations are not sponsored in any way by any company. They're based on our testing and reviews. Finally, a note on pricing. While pricing was accurate when we made this video, prices do change pretty often, so it's always worth checking out the links in the description, which will provide up-to-date pricing information and give you an opportunity to purchase the monitors we talk about. So let's get into it. The best gaming monitors on the market right now are 4K OLEDs in either 32-inch or 27-inch sizes, depending on your preference. I personally find the larger size better and more immersive, so to me, the 32-inch models take the overall crown, but either way you go, you'll be getting an excellent gaming experience. This type of monitor is currently the best because of its combination of specifications and overall performance. The best 4K OLEDs feature 240Hz refresh rates, a nice high resolution, excellent feature sets, and outstanding performance. OLED is lightning fast, which leads to unbeatable motion clarity in games. OLED is also capable of amazing contrast and HDR, thanks to per pixel control, deep zero-level blacks, and wide color gamut. The quality of the image on an OLED panel will blow you away with its clarity, consistency, vibrance, and contrast. There are lots of good 4K OLEDs on the market, many of which I would recommend at the right price. The overall best of the 32-inch bunch is the Asus ROG Swift PG32 UCDM with its 4K 240Hz QD-OLED, as it has the most features and best performance. It brings fantastic HDR accuracy, black frame insertion support, and Dolby Vision, but it's typically the most expensive option with prices starting around $1,200 US. Other options are worth considering because they use the same panel and therefore largely offer the same performance. MSI's range, including the MPG321URX, MAG321UPX, and MPG322URX, don't have as many features but are often cheaper, so they present better value. The 321UPX is usually just $900 US, which is a great deal. Gigabyte's FO32U2 is also worth considering for a similar reason. At below $1,000 US, it's usually pretty good value and might be the best choice in your region. There's also the Dell Alienware AW3225QF if you wanted a curved version of this screen, the Samsung Odyssey G81SF if you want a matte finish instead of glossy, and the Asus ROG Swift PG32 UCDP if you want a 32-inch 4K WOLED with dual mode support. If you play a lot of multiplayer games, dual mode might be especially appealing as it adds a 1080p configuration at a higher 480Hz refresh rate for even better motion clarity. If you would prefer a 27-inch screen size instead, I've tested 4 models, all of which perform well. The Asus ROG Swift PG27 UCDM is the best performer, similar to the 32-inch model, but you can get a very similar feature set for a few $100s less in the ROG Strix XG27 UCDMG, so typically that's what I'd choose. It's a 27-inch 4K 240Hz QD-OLED panel that drops support for Dolby Vision and DisplayPort 2.1, but right now it costs $200 US less and otherwise performs the same as the PG model. I'd also recommend here the Dell Alienware AW2725Q, as in a lot of regions it's the cheapest model. Again, very similar performance to the Asus models I've just been talking about, though it doesn't have quite as many features. At around $800 US right now, I think it's clearly the best value option. Of course, with OLEDs, you do need to be aware of the risk of permanent burn-in, which is the main weakness compared to LCDs. If you primarily game on your monitor, this won't be an issue, but if you're going to use it for lots of desktop apps and productivity work, it might not be the best choice. If you want a premium, high-quality gaming monitor, but you don't want to spend $800 or $1,000 US, the next step down is 1440p OLED. There's a lot of great options right now, sitting between $550 and $700 US, that either offer a really solid entry point to OLED gaming or offer a nice upgrade from 1440p LCDs. I elaborate on this a bit more in my recent best 1440p and best OLED videos, but right now there are three main choice classes that I find hard to split. The cheapest options that I would go with are 27-inch 240 or 280Hz QD OLEDs. Those are usually sitting around $550 to $600 US. The Asus ROG Strix XG27 AQ-DMG is a really solid choice as a 240Hz W OLED at $650, and then for about $700 you can get 360Hz QD OLEDs. I don't think there's a wrong option here, all are fairly priced, and it ultimately comes down to how much you want to spend and what capabilities you're after. 240Hz QD OLEDs are a great place to start because they're relatively affordable and offer the same performance as 360Hz models, just without that top-end refresh rate capability. If you mostly play single-player titles and you won't benefit from the added refresh rate, there's no point spending more to get 360Hz. Either way, you're getting elite-tier OLED performance, excellent HDR and all that stuff. Just be sure the lower refresh model you're getting is actually cheaper, because I've seen 360Hz models down near $620 from time to time. The models I'd be looking at here are things like the MSI MAG271QPX-E2, the Gigabyte MO27Q2, MSI MAG273QPX-24, and soon the new 280Hz models like the Dell Alienware AW2725D. I've tested some of these and will be reviewing more in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for those reviews, but the models I have tested perform well, so I'm expecting good things across the board. Be on the lookout for the best value options in your region, and so long as it's QD OLED, it will likely offer very similar performance characteristics to the models we have reviewed. The Asus ROG Strix XG27 AQ-DMG is a great choice as a 27-inch 1440p 240Hz W OLED, and it is the only 240Hz W OLED I'm currently recommending. That's because unlike earlier W OLEDs, it has a much nicer glossy finish compared to matte, and it achieves higher, more consistent levels of brightness across HDR and SDR. At $650, this is a great choice instead of QD OLED because it does a couple of things better. It handles ambient light reflection in a way that doesn't cause raised blacks, and brightness can be higher than QD OLEDs, especially in overall brighter scenes. The drawbacks, though, are weaker text clarity and lower color volume, so not every aspect of the XG27 AQ-DMG is superior, but I still think it's worth considering. 360Hz QD OLEDs are these days just a $100 premium over 240Hz models in some circumstances, so they're worth considering if you will benefit from the higher refresh rate. For example, if you play lots of multiplayer games, or if you want to utilize high levels of frame generation. As of when I made this video, the Dell Alienware AW2725DF is just $620 US, which is actually cheaper than some 240Hz options and stands out as a great value choice. I reviewed it and it performs really well. I've also tested the MSI MPG271QRX, the Gigabyte FO27Q3, and Asus ROG Strix XG27 ACD&G, and there's very little separating all of these options, so I typically recommend buyers just get whatever is the cheapest in their region. If you can get one for about $100 more than a 240Hz model, I think that's a suitable price premium to pay. If not, I'd stick to the other models I've been mentioning so far. For higher-end shoppers, the go-to options are all OLED. In the mid-range though, at price points below where OLEDs start, I'd generally recommend a 4K LCD gaming monitor. These sorts of products are cheaper than ever, they offer a great balance for both work and play, and they're a potential upgrade option for current 1080p and 1440p owners. There's a clear best option among mid-range 4K LCDs, and that's the Gigabyte M27UP. It's a 27-inch 4K 160Hz IPS LCD with dual mode functionality, also providing a 1080p 320Hz configuration. It's supposed to have a price tag of just $300 US when it launches soon, though with tariffs in the US, its retail price might be a bit higher, but either way, I expect this to be the best value 4K gaming monitor by far. At anywhere between $300 and $350 US, there is no reason to purchase any other 27-inch 4K display. Normally, when you see a new monitor undercutting alternatives by $50 to $100, that means there are compromises. Not with the Gigabyte M27 UP, which performs just as well as other models we've tested, and even includes dual mode functionality, which has typically been reserved for premium offerings. It offers fast response times, very solid color performance, good factory calibration, and a nice high resolution, which is great for multiple use cases. 1080p 320Hz also adds to the package for multiplayer gamers. The main problem at the time of making this video is that, while I've been able to test one and use one, it actually hasn't launched in most regions. While I would generally recommend waiting until it's released, a good alternative in the meantime might be the LG 27GR93U, which has recently hit $300 US on sale. It performs very similarly to the M27 UP, though it lacks dual mode support, and at that sort of sale price, it's an excellent purchase in my opinion, but when that sale expires and it goes back up to more like $450, it becomes a lot less appealing in comparison to the Gigabyte. In this sort of category, I'd also be considering a larger 32-inch panel, and while they're not quite as good value as the latest 27-inch offerings, the larger size is more appealing for work and play. The LG 32GR93U is still a great choice as a 32-inch 4K 144Hz IPS LCD, and if the Gigabyte M32 UP is available near that price, I'd also consider it. These products offer a similar experience to the 27-inch models in terms of motion performance and colors, but are typically priced more in the $500 US range, so it's quite a premium to pay over the 27-inch prices we've just been discussing, but the larger panel size is better in my opinion. A lot of gamers will probably be interested in an HDR-capable monitor, but won't be willing to pay north of $500 US for an OLED. This is where the best value mainstream HDR gaming monitor comes in, and right now, I believe if you pay about $300 US, you can still get a great experience, particularly if your focus is on single-player games. Now, in the past, I've recommended here the AOC Q27G3XMN, and that's still a great choice. These days, it's between $260 and $300 US, offering a 27-inch 1440p VA LCD at 180Hz, along with a 336-zone full-array local dimming backlight. This is a true HDR product, offering what I'd consider an entry experience. It has high peak brightness that exceeds 1000 nits, a great contrast ratio capable of providing rich shadows, and decent dimming control. It's not at the level of higher-end monitors in terms of its refinement, speed, and control, but it does a really decent job at this price point. This isn't just an HDR monitor though. With the 1440p 180Hz panel, you're getting a great resolution and refresh rate for today's games. Motion performance is okay from a VA LCD, it won't blow you away, but it's fine enough. It's well built, has no major feature omissions, and it's widely available. Now these days there's also an alternate choice, which is the AOC Q27G40XMN, an upgraded version of the G3XMN that bumps the backlight up to 1152 local dimming zones. This increases the level of control, it tightens up the dimming in HDR content, and provides a better contrast ratio. Along with better response time tuning and cleaning up a few of the issues with the G3, like occasional zone flicker and faint scan lines, I think the G40XMN is overall the better product, and it can be purchased for a similar $300 US price. It doesn't get a full recommendation from me though for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's not available in Europe and AOC have no plans to bring it there, so Europeans will have to settle for the G3XMN. Secondly, the stand on the newer model is worse and the port selection is downgraded. And thirdly, there is some unit variance where some models have shipped with annoying bugs. It's essentially a lottery as to whether you get a fixed model, like my review unit, or one with issues. That's pretty annoying to deal with, but if you do end up with a good one like I did, it performs really well. I would also avoid these AOC monitors if you mostly play multiplayer games and aren't going to benefit from its HDR capabilities. For a similar price, you could get a decent 1440p 240Hz SDR monitor instead, like the LG 27GR83Q or Gigabyte M27QX, and you could get the faster Asus ROG Strix XG27 ACS for a little bit less. Or, another option, of course, is you could save money and grab something from our next category. If you want an entry-level gaming monitor, I would recommend one of the lower-cost 1440p IPS LCDs currently on the market. These aren't the absolute cheapest gaming monitors you can get. 24-inch 1080p 144Hz IPS starts around $120 at the moment, but if you spend a bit more on 1440p, I think it will end up a much better investment for your gaming setup. These days, entry-level 1440p IPS LCDs start between $150 and $200 US, so about 25 to 50% more than bargain basement 1080p models. But for that extra price, you get both a larger screen, we're talking 27 inches versus 24 inches, which I feel is much nicer for gaming, and a higher resolution with better pixel density. This leads to a much better overall product, and it's fairly priced in my opinion, as the screen is 25% larger and you get an 80% increase in pixel count. Pricing in this segment is quite variable, so whenever I check to see what options are in this range, it's always different. I'll start by talking about the options that are more often the best value. One is the MSI MAG275QF that we recently reviewed. This monitor has an extremely basic build with a pretty crap fixed height stand, but the panel itself performs well. It's a stripped back experience with just an sRGB color gamut, however it has great color accuracy, a 180Hz refresh rate with decent response time tuning in the middle of the refresh range, wide viewing angles, and otherwise a quite typical IPS LCD experience. For just $180 to $200 US, it's in a very solid position, and outside the US, it's often even better value. I've also liked the ASRock PG27QF T2A in the past with its similar 1440p 180Hz IPS LCD. It's not as well tuned as the MSI model, but it's cheaper and it comes with an adjustable height stand. These days it's a bit hard to find though, possibly pointing to it being discontinued. Then there's a range of models which come in and out of being good value choices. The Asus ROG Strix XG27 ACS is usually too expensive as a 27-inch 1440p 180Hz IPS LCD with variable overdrive, with a regular price of nearly $300. For that sort of money, you may as well get an HDR offering or a 4K monitor instead. But there's been a couple of times over the last 6 months where it's dropped to just $200 US, and it's a steal at that price. It's the best performing 1440p 180Hz LCD I've tested in terms of response times, and other areas to this display are really solid as well. So anytime it hits around that $200 mark, it's definitely a product I'd buy. LG are usually quite competitive in this range with at least one of their many products like the 27GL83A, 27GL850, 27GP850, 27GP83B and more, which are all variations of a similar thing. Check the individual reviews to see what each of them is like, but especially below $200, they are great value choices because essentially what you're getting is a higher end monitor from a few years ago discounted to a lower price. What I find hard to justify are any of the 1440p 180Hz-ish LCDs priced above $250. In that price range, you're just getting too close to other options. You can hopefully get the 4K M27UP for $300 as I mentioned previously. There are multiple 240Hz models up in the $280 to $300 range, and of course HDR monitors as well. It's just not worth spending that much these days on a standard 1440p 180Hz IPS LCD. I don't generally recommend super high refresh rate monitors to many gamers because they're often quite expensive and the benefits of these extreme refreshes are limited to certain types of multiplayer games. But if you do want the best motion clarity and you love fast-paced games, there are some truly amazing products to consider. Right now, I would opt for a 500Hz QD OLED monitor as the best all-round extreme refresh rate offering. The option I've tested is the MSI MAG272QPX50, which is a 27-inch 1440p 500Hz model. It has the highest brightness we've seen from any QD OLED monitor so far, along with elite motion clarity that is fully compatible with all features, including adaptive sync and HDR. This product has clarity equivalent to a 750Hz LCD, and input lag so low, the monitor feels unlike anything else. The 272QPX50 will be available later this month, priced at $850 US, which is a pretty good position for this product, considering its main competition is more expensive 480Hz WOLED monitors, which are typically $900 to $1,000. This QD OLED alternative both performs better and comes in cheaper, so it's a pretty easy recommendation. The MSI model I've tested offers excellent performance and features, so it's definitely one to look out for. There are other models coming soon using the same panel from brands like Gigabyte and Samsung and more, so also be on the lookout for those as I expect performance to be very similar. For motion clarity purists, you can go one step beyond OLED and purchase an Elite backlight strobed LCD. These are much less flexible products and need to be run in a specific configuration to access the best motion clarity. But if the only thing that matters is how clearly you can see enemies, they are worth considering so long as you're aware of the flaws. The best strobed LCD is the Asus ROG Swift Pro PG248QP, a 24-inch TN LCD with a 540Hz refresh rate. Its ULMB2 backlight strobing technology, combined with the rapid transition times of its TN panel, allow it to offer better clarity than 500Hz OLED in super fast situations. It's quite an expensive monitor at over $800 US, which makes it an enthusiast display for sure. The downsides to going with this monitor over an OLED is that you only get this level of clarity at a fixed refresh rate without any support for HDR on a relatively small 1080p panel and with poor viewing angles and weak contrast. This really is a min-max monitor where motion clarity is as good as it gets, but everything else has been sacrificed to get there. If that appeals to you, I'd definitely consider the PG248QP and other similar monitors like the BenQ XL2566K, which also has great backlight strobing at a lower refresh rate. If you want the best ultra-wide monitor, I'd currently recommend one of two OLED options. The best of the best on the market right now is the LG 45GX950A, a 45-inch 5120x2160W OLED running at 165Hz. It's absolutely enormous and highly immersive, providing the ultimate experience for single-player gaming and simulators. Compared to earlier 45-inch ultra-wide OLEDs, I can actually recommend this one due to its higher resolution and better pixel density. Text no longer looks blurry. It also offers fantastic motion performance thanks to the speed of OLED, and great HDR performance with per pixel dimming, a high contrast ratio, and strong levels of brightness. It has dual mode support as well, offering a 2560x1080 mode at 330Hz for increased clarity in multiplayer titles. I'm not the biggest fan of the 800R curve, though an adjustable curve version is coming later this year. It's also an extremely expensive display with a price tag of $2,000 US, making it by far the most expensive product featured in this video. I think it's a great monitor, but that price tag will restrict it to the highest end buyers. At a more reasonable price, I would recommend the Dell Alienware AW3425DW. It's a 34-inch 3440x1440 QD OLED running at up to 240Hz with great tuning and accuracy, plus all the benefits we love from OLED panels. It's simply a better and newer version of the AW3423DWF that we've been recommending for some time now, and with a price tag of $800 US, it's difficult to recommend anything else. So that's it for this gaming monitor recommendation video. As always, if you do want to learn more about the monitors I've been talking about in this video, I have individual reviews available right here on Monitors Unboxed. I'd also recommend checking the links in the description for updated pricing information, as this does change over time, so check down there if you are watching this video weeks or months after it went live. We appreciate anyone that uses those links to buy one of the monitors we've recommended in this video if you found it helpful. Also, if you have a specific type of display in mind, like 4K, 1440p, OLED, that sort of thing, we have further in-depth guides with additional recommendations and details in each of those categories. Monitor performance, their strengths and weaknesses can be quite complex, so we have plenty of resources here at Monitors Unboxed to help you buy a high-quality display. Aside from that, a ton of work goes into these monitor recommendation videos because we do test the vast majority of the displays that we feature in these videos. That takes tons of work, so we always appreciate the support of our Patreon members who make that possible. If you want to support Monitors Unboxed and keep us testing these monitors, then Patreon is the best way to do that. If you sign up, you'll get access to some pretty cool benefits as well. We've got monthly live streams, we've got our Discord chat, great place to chat about monitors, get further advice about your purchasing, that sort of thing. We've also got all of the OSD settings that we use for our reviews. That sort of thing is available for Patreon members. So there's tons of good stuff if you want to support the channel in that way. Aside from that, you can just subscribe to the channel, use the links in the description, all that sort of thing. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.